This is your brain, and this is a keyboard missing keys. And in this video, I'm going to explain to you what these two things have in common when it comes to learning a foreign language. Let's start with the keyboard. Imagine how frustrating it would be to type on this keyboard. You're missing keys, so you won't be able to spell things correctly. People will think you are uneducated or strange. Now imagine reading a message that was typed on this keyboard. That would be even more frustrating, wouldn't it? You would have to use extra brain power to fully understand the message. For example, here's a message I wrote using a keyboard with only 4 keys deactivated. Can you make sense of it? It takes a lot of work, right? You probably still don't understand it fully. You know what this is kind of like? It's kind of like trying to have a conversation in a language you're not fluent in. Imagine, for example, you're trying to learn Russian and you're in a conversation with a Russian girl. She says something to you fast and you recognize some words, but you don't really understand what she's saying because you're not fluent in Russian yet. But you don't want to embarrass yourself, so you just smile and nod your head repeatedly as if you understood everything. The conversation goes on like this for some time, then all of a sudden, she stops talking and looks at you really funny. Then you realize what happened. Oh crap, she just asked me a question and apparently I missed it, and now I'm just standing here smiling and nodding the whole time like an idiot. You ask her embarrassingly if she can repeat the question. Her facial expression falls. Now she looks a bit annoyed. She knows you were faking it the whole time, which means you made her feel like an idiot for speaking all that time for no reason. She's probably thinking about how she can politely exit the conversation right about now. But she repeats the question anyways, and now it's time for you to redeem yourself by answering. But wait, now you actually have to answer her question. That means you have to actually speak Russian, a language you're not fluent in, need I remind you. Oh God. You start to speak, except you're not really speaking, you're stuttering. The words get stuck in your mouth and your tongue gets tied in a knot. Whatever scraps of confidence were left have now vanished completely as soon as you hear your own garbled voice. Unable to take it anymore, you decide to wrap things up. You mutter a few more disjointed words and finally, shut up. Now that you finally got it all out, you feel a slight tinge of relief. But that relief is short-lived because you see her face and your heart drops. You know exactly what this face means. What? Sorry, I didn't catch that. Can you please say that again? It is at that moment that your only wish in life is for the earth to open up underneath you and swallow you whole. But it doesn't. So you got no choice but to go back and keep trying to learn. So you conclude that maybe the reason why you have trouble understanding is because you don't know enough vocabulary. So you make flashcards and use memory training apps like Memrise. And maybe the reason you can't speak is because you haven't studied enough grammar. So you find grammar textbook and grammar training apps like Duolingo. But each time you have a conversation with a real person, it's the same thing. No matter how many words you memorize, you still can't understand native speakers when they speak fast. And no matter how many grammar rules you memorize, you still can't speak with clarity and confidence. What's going on here? Do you just not have the language learning gene? No, that's not the problem. There's something else happening here, and to understand, you need to go back to that broken keyboard message from earlier. Why can't we understand the message on this keyboard? Is it because the vocabulary and grammar is wrong? No, the vocab and grammar is just fine. The problem is simply that the keyboard that typed this message is missing keys. If we add in the missing keys, things will very quickly become clear. Here's that message with one of the 4 missing keys added in. Here it is with the second key added in, and the third, and the fourth. Notice how just by adding the missing keys, the message instantly becomes way more clear. This is where your brain comes into play. Think of your brain as having a conversational keyboard. It's with this keyboard that your brain processes ingoing and outgoing messages in a spoken conversation. But in order for communication to be clear, you can't have a broken keyboard. If your conversational keyboard is missing keys, then you won't be able to understand people clearly, and they won't be able to understand you clearly. It doesn't matter how much vocabulary and grammar you know. If your keyboard is missing keys, communication will not be clear. But what are the keys in your conversational keyboard? In the mimic method, we call these keys the elemental sounds. You see, every language has its own finite set of elemental sounds. What I mean by that is, everything you will ever hear a native speaker of that language say can be broken down into some combination of these elemental sounds. For example, American English has 42 elemental sounds. If you take everything I said in this video, you can break it down into some combination of these 42 sounds. Similarly, Spanish has 39 elemental sounds, French 38 elemental sounds, German 56, Brazilian Portuguese, 55 elemental sounds. Now, a lot of elemental sounds overlap across languages. For example, the m from mama exists in all the languages I just mentioned. But there will always be elemental sounds that your first language does not share with your target language. By default, these foreign language sounds will be, well, foreign to you. You won't be able to hear these sounds correctly, and you won't be able to pronounce these sounds correctly. In other words, these elemental sounds are missing from your conversational keyboard. So the question you need to ask yourself is this: which sounds am I missing? I can't answer that question for you. Every person has their own unique struggles with hearing and pronunciation. Your missing sounds won't be the exact same as your friend's missing sounds. What I can do for you, however, is give you these elemental sounds checklists. In these pronunciation guides, you get a PDF checklist of each individual sound, its symbol, and several word examples, a series of auto recordings going through each sound and word example, and also a video of me reviewing each sound. What I want you to do is use these materials to finally answer the question, which sounds am I missing? To do that, you need to listen to the audio of each elemental sound and run this 2-question test. Am I hearing this sound as distinct from all the others? Am I pronouncing this sound the exact same as the native speaker is? If for any specific sound you can't answer yes to both questions, then that sound is missing from your conversational keyboard. Run this 2-question test on each sound in the checklist, and at the end, you will know what your missing sounds are, which should lead you to ask this question: how do I actually learn these missing sounds? Just knowing which keys are missing from your keyboard doesn't really solve the problem, right? To solve the problem, you need to do something to install those missing keys on your keyboard. Most language teachers, textbooks, learning software, smartphone applications, they don't really tell you what to do here. The best they can do is just say, try pronouncing it like this. You still don't get it? Well, don't worry about it. Just keep memorizing those words and rules and you'll be fine. But as we now know, you won't be fine. You need to have some sort of system for fixing your broken keyboard. In the next video, I'm going to tell you exactly what you need to do to learn your missing sounds. Then, if you want to learn those sounds faster and make sure you've got them right, you'll want to sign up for our Elemental Sounds Masterclass when we open up the shopping cart for a limited time discount next week. But we'll get to all that in our next video. In the meantime, figure out what your missing sounds are, then we'll touch base again in a few days. See you soon.